Okay, it says we're live. Okay. Welcome. This is She Got Faith, founder of Healing She Got Faith, and we have a very special guest in the building, Miss Christian Shields.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello, Miss Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So Christian is the founder of My Secret Purpose, and so Christian, if you just want to give a little introduction to yourself.
Absolutely. So I am Christian Shields. That is my actual real government name. And I am the founder of My Secret Purpose, which is an organization that helps people discover their purpose and empowers them to succeed. And I am also the creator of the My Secret Purpose conference. My background is in social work and combination of business. And so you really get a lot of that integrated along with my personal faith. So that's kind
Yes.
of me.
Yes. So, just a quick overview for all of my followers. So, most of you know the month of June was dedicated to students of any age, any level who was affected by COVID-19. So, this month we've been giving out weekly scholarships. So, we have two wonderful recipients as of right now. So, we've been doing that. I partnered with my sister and her two businesses. So the month of June was dedicated basically to the education system because during COVID-19, students got played. I'm just going to call it what it is. Students got played. So we tried to open a platform and, celebrate our students because I know how I was as a student and I needed more support. So I just wanted to provide that. So we're still going on with that. And we are going to dive deep into this today. Healing She Got Faith is all about dealing with our grief. And as of right now, we are definitely, as a society, grieving. So, one of the reasons why I brought Christian on the show was because Christian and I have very similar grieving stories, and we didn't even know each other in depth when we were both grieving. But Christian came out to New York. She reached out to your girl. We ended up going out to eat, and we shared our short stories and realized why we've been going through the same thing. So we end up sharing those stories, and both of us have a background in social work. Both of us
Mhm.
were dealing with this self-love journey. Both of us were trying to invest in our businesses, trying to be normal, whatever that looked like. We were trying to figure that out. And so while I was planning this, Christian was definitely one of the first guests that I was like, she's going to come on because we don't have enough people talking about the grief process in real time. So you
Yeah.
always see therapists, social workers, counselors talking about the grief process, but it was like in the past. Whereas me and Christian, no, we're going to tell you what we're going through today. We're going to tell you what we went through yesterday, last month, we're not here to play games and we're not here to sugarcoat it because the grieving process is real. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Christian, but that was why I wanted you to come on today.
I'm backing you all the way with the grief conversation today because one of the things that I realize about grieving is we think that it's a private matter. And sometimes knowing that we try to withhold our grief and our experiences because we don't want to offend anybody or we don't want people to see us at our worst. And I can tell you that from personal experience, grief brought out the worst version of me that I could ever imagine. Like if there was anything I
Mm-hmm.
broke it during my time of grief.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, grief is something that we live through.
Right.
It's not something that or we live with it. It's not something that okay, it happened and it just goes away. It's something that we learn to live with and walk with throughout our life. And knowing that, I think it's important to understand that we have to acknowledge it and not suppress it so that we are able to actually function in life. I want to stop there because I know you have a lot
Yeah.
to say, and we have a lot of conversation to dive into. But as you all are listening, I just encourage you all to tune in to yourself, take a couple deep breaths, sit back, and kind of settle into the conversation, so that you can be open to hear what is actually being said and see how it could apply to you.
Absolutely. And I just want to piggyback off of that. Please make sure you are breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Please make sure, like
Yeah.
please make sure. And it really is grounding. So for today, I have 4 goals that I really want to make sure we touch. We're gonna talk about Christian and myself dealing with grief, a society grieving, a grieving society, let's call it that. The importance of life insurance. I do think that is something we all need to talk about. And then I do want Christian to share where you can find her, what services she offers, and how we can stay in contact with her. But let's start off with this. Miss Christian, just tell us who you are, how you got started, and to follow up about that, like, can you name a time that you were grieving and I know you kind of already spoke on it, but just kind of, just give a little synopsis of what that looked like.
Got you, girl. Are you breathing? Go ahead, breathe. This is some heavy conversation today. So my grieving started a long time ago. I want to say it was like my days entering into college. Okay. And then I want to start there because a lot of times we think that grief has to be just associated with death. Grief sometimes is associated with, there's informal and formal. So there are things that you could be separating from, that could be a relationship, that could be separating from divorce, that could be the living with your parents or going off to college. It could be even as simple as getting a bad grade. You could grieve that experience. And I just want us to take the limits off of what it really means to be in grief. But I want to bring it to a more closer conversation, with the experience of losing my grandmother in 2018. That was the most personable relationship that I had outside of, like, your natural mother and father. And my grandmother to me was like everything. When you have that person you can confide in. And at least I told you I grabbed my tissue for this, okay?
Listen right here.
So bear with me, y'all. But that losing my grandmother to me took me in a whirlwind. I think it was the way that she went that also shook me, because oftentimes we think that, I want them to go in their sleep. I want them to, go of old age. And we have these hopes and wishes for the death of our loved ones that we sometimes, when it happens the opposite of that, and it becomes a tragic loss, that we lose ourselves because it was so unexpected. And like, we already know that death is unexpected, but how it happens has a major impact on our processing of grief. And so knowing that her choice to go was that she felt hopeless in life. She felt that it was no ends anymore. Like, it was nothing else she could do. She gave everything in life a fight, and I want to share this here, you all. Like, let's be realistic about the issues that we deal with in life. They are heavy. They are not they're issues that cause us to have to really confront what I'm gonna say, like demons or spirits that like circle us in our mind. Because a lot of times we try to graze over those thoughts that are negative, and they tie into negative self-talk, and then they tie into actions of trying to save yourself from feeling what you feel. And so you get to a place of numbness and helplessness and hopeless. And so when you hit that place, you, like my grandmother did, it was something that she also was embarrassed of. This is what I believe, she was embarrassed of that. So it was hard to share that, I'm in this place, but I'm grandmother. I'm supposed to be the strong one. I'm supposed to be the one present for you. I don't want to I don't want to be a burden to you by what I'm feeling. And so I encourage us now, like, to make sure that we make having conversations with our loved ones a priority in a safe space, without judgment, without making them feel as if, if I share what I'm struggling with, you gonna like you gonna crucify me for like you're gonna make me
Right.
feel horrible about what I feel. And so the relationship that me and my grandmother had, the last conversation we had was about 2 hours long the week before her death. And in that conversation, I just could not stop telling her how much I loved her. And it was just like, it was more than normal, right? Ah, okay. It was more than normal because I just kept saying, I just want you to know I love you. I love you. And it was just something about that call that had me like, man, what is going on? So then I also had a dream. I'm a dreamer. So I had a dream where I woke up and it's frantic and I called all of my relatives. I was like, hold on, girl, because this knot look like it's gonna come down. My bad. Like, sorry, y'all. But I called my family and I was like, check on Nana, check on Nana. Like, I was just like all over, like, check on her, check on her. And so she got wind and I was calling everybody saying, check on her. That was the Sunday before her death. And I'm gonna tell you how that's significant. So she got worried. She come. She was like, girl, I'm okay. What you doing? Like calming me down. I'm like, okay, I just had this real bad. I was just tripping, but it was heavy. Little did I know that dream happened one Sunday. So I had the 2-hour conversation. I had the dream on the Sunday. And then I had, then on my way to church, October 14th, I got the most devastating call. It was just like, hey, now it's my mama calling me, telling me, check on your Nana, go check on your Nana, so now it's like the conversation switching. That's a week,
Right.
so we get there. And I'm like, man, they talking about she going to the ambulance, and we was going to the ambulance, and I'm sitting, I'm riding, I'm like, I got my fiance, we headed to church together, and he like, I don't know. We holding hands, we praying, we just like, what's going on? And then I'm like, wait a minute, if they was getting ready to take her to the hospital, we would be headed to the hospital. Why are we still headed to the house? And so I just put one and two together. So in the car, we began to pray. I was just like, you know what? She's gone. I had to start making peace on that ride. Lo and behold, to get there and to walk in the door, and there's her body. And they're trying to resuscitate her and nothing's working. It's like, we think, girl, I'm over here. I'm like, I know she's gone, right? I know she's gone. At that point. And here's what I share. Sometimes we take advantage of the time that we have with our loved ones, and we don't tell them how much we love them, and we hold these petty grudges, and we dislike it for petty reasons and things that just don't really matter. And so I share this, that like, if you are in a place right now where you have been holding something against someone that that you really love, that you take out this time to really build that, address that. It's hard.
Right.
But take out that time to address that, and tell the people that you love them and value them. And so I'm gonna pull out so I can pull myself together so we can. All right.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And just anybody who is dealing with grief, I have a very, very similar story to that. I just encourage you to address how you feel. A lot of times, like Christian mentioned earlier, we don't want to address how we feel because other people are uncomfortable. And that was the hardest part about my grief, because people were asking me, well, Lisa, what do you need from me? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't even look in the mirror right now. What you mean? You want me to tell you? I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't want to eat. I don't want to sleep. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to them. I don't have nothing. And then part of my grief process was I was still taking my brother to the hospital and to the doctors, and my sister and I was still taking care of him and still trying to make him feel like he was a man and that he didn't lose that quality of life. So not only did I have to grieve, but I had to remember that my brother was still here. My brother still needed to know that he still had purpose. And I didn't want to take nothing away from him by babying him, by doing all this stuff. And I had to constantly remind him, like, we gonna be okay. If it's the last thing me and my big sister gotta do, we gonna make sure you okay. So on top of that, people like, oh, you so strong, you this. Let me tell y'all something. If y'all listen, do not ever tell anybody who is grieving that they are strong. That is the last thing they need to hear. We don't want to hear that we're strong. What I needed to hear was, Lisa, you're here. Lisa, I love you. Lisa, I bought your favorite bag of M&Ms. Do you know, like, how much? Like, and let me just say that I had two friends, boy and a girl. The girl, she texts me every morning. She texts me scriptures. She prayed over me. She checked on me. She always asked because she dropped stuff off. I loved it. She wasn't overbearing. She just wanted me to know that I wasn't alone. My guy best friend, one day he called me. He said, hey, I know you're at work. I just need to know if you'll be at your office because of the type of work I was doing at the time. I was going to different high schools. He said, I'm at Chick-fil-A. I know you love this lemonade. I really just want to bring you some lemonade. So he comes to my office. He got the biggest cup of this lemonade. And I start bawling. I'm like, I just really love this lemonade. Like, I can't believe you got me this lemonade. And he was like, that's all you've been asking people, is just to pour into you. And so through that, I learned what I had been looking for was me. I was looking for the person I am to everybody else. I was looking for me. And I didn't know how to be me towards me. I was so hard on myself during my grieving process. I had just lost my mom. And 11 years prior to that, I had lost my dad, in which I was 15. I knew nothing about grief. Neither did my mom, neither did my big sister. I didn't know that I didn't have to be strong. I didn't know that. And now I'm here, man. And now I'm here at this point where I just planned not one but two funerals for my mom. And I'm trying to figure out, what is life? What is it? What's happening? What's going on? Because what was moving forward? And I had to learn that I didn't have to answer that question right then and there. I didn't have to be strong. I didn't have to answer that question. I didn't have to please anybody else. I didn't have to have an elaborate description of what was happening in my life. I had to really be in tune with who was Lisa and what is Lisa going through. What does Lisa need? Because I couldn't answer any of those questions. I wasn't eating, but I gained like 50 pounds. I was going to therapy, but nothing was clicking. I was walking outside, but it felt like I was in a dark tunnel. So embracing that and really figuring out, what is it that I need? Because like most of us do, I was trying to please everybody else. I wasn't worried about me, and I was the one that was hurt. Ooh. That got deep real fast.
Before we move forward, let's pause for a second.
Yeah.
Lisa, I just want to tell you that I love you. And this right here, like, this takes courage to build something off of that pain. And that's what you're doing. You're creating She Got Faith that is rooted in the grief and death of your mother and father. And that in itself is tough, it's hard. And I just want you to know that I honor you for moving forward and that you are loved and that I appreciate you because you're opening up so many doors for people who have dealt with their grief in private, and you're allowing the veil to come off for people that think that grief looks a certain way, that have boxed it in. And I think that your organization is treading a path for people that are going to be survivors with grief, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what you're doing. And so thank you so much. Like, this is great. Like,
Thank
it's really great.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I need to hear, like, before we got on, and I told you I'm proud of you. You doing your thing. You said I need to hear that. I need to hear that as well. I
Mm.
mean, like I do. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I need to stop and breathe a lot. So I definitely appreciate that. I definitely. um, we kind of already hit on this, but it's a lot happening, as you know, and you're working on becoming a licensed clinical social worker, and you have your own business, and you are a life coach, and you do so much for the community. You got your conference. So I just want to ask you one simple question. How are you?
Today I am fine. I'm well right now. What I have found is that, this is a moment by moment thing for me, as it is for many people. Um, and just how I just diverted a little bit, it's easy to think about others before you think about yourself. And so one of the things that I ended up having to do was to do like a social media separation. I've ended up having to, my phone stays a little bit more on do not disturb. And I've had to really enforce my professional and personal boundaries. Um, I'm spending time where I want to spend time right now. I'm doing what I want to do right now. And I'm not harming anybody in the process. I'm caring for myself and also those whom I'm already connected to. And so I want to make sure that I have the bandwidth to be able to be available to me first and then have something to actually overflow into other
Mm,
capacity. But that's minute by minute, that's moment by moment. Um, it depends on the day. It depends on the situation. It depends on how much I allow myself to consume and expose myself to within that day. And so, like I said, right now, I'm well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That minute by minute. So my favorite quote is "Take life day by day, and when that's too fast, minute by minute." Um,
Well,
so that's like a life quote of mine, because I think, especially in the grieving process, we try to plan so that we don't feel the pain. I'm a
mhm,
person, I've learned to embrace that pain. And I've also learned to put that energy into whatever, whether that's me getting 8 hours of sleep, yoga, dancing, reading, meditating. Currently, right now, being out in the community, protesting, going to committee meetings, being involved in any way possible, finding those outlets to put that in. Sometimes I'm all in, other days I'm in the bed. And I
that's real.
yeah. And I think we get scared of those days where we're not
Yeah.
all in, you know.
Mhm,
I just want to speak on the global pandemic right now, because if
mhm.
I could just be totally honest, that break is what I've been praying for. That break is
Man,
really
girl, hold up. I think I was talking to somebody about that yesterday. Like, let's be real. There are tragic events, and I want to acknowledge that there are tragic events that have taken place. There are things that are out of our control that are happening right now. There's a lot of crisis that is centered around this time. And, just with anything, I think everything is due a break at some point.
Mhm.
And for me, prior to this, it was constantly going, like you said, I'm working on my license to become the first level, which is the licensed master social worker, finishing out this degree, owning a business, working full time, and then being a part of other organizations and the roles that I hold within those. And so that's a lot on the person sometimes,
Yeah.
I still got me. I'm a job, you know. So when I think about just where we are in the midst of this pandemic, to me, I kept saying, man, I just need a moment. Like, I just need to breathe, that isn't like 10, 15 minutes between the next thing I have to do.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm one of the people where this pandemic doesn't have me in despair. Like, it was like a true blessing for me to be here right now. I needed to fire hose some thoughts and,
Mhm.
you know, transition away from some things, and I don't think that I would have been able to do it at the speed and rate that I was going. I think it would have been hard, and I would have been really hard on myself about having to step away and pivot and make changes, because I would have been, thinking like, what would this look like for me? How would this feel? What would other people think? And I would put other people's needs before my own. And so having to sit with myself has empowered me to really do what's best.
Right.
Yeah.
That my prayer was, I just need some time where I can do what I want when I want without any deadlines. That was literally my prayer. And so currently I'm on like a 1 year mental health break. It took me probably about a year to prepare for this 1 year, because we still got bills and things like that. So it took a lot of discipline, a lot of planning, and it took for me. I mean, one thing I will say is I don't have a spouse, I don't have kids, and unfortunately I don't have parents. So those factors that we usually have, that we usually take on the responsibilities for, I do not currently have those things. So I was blessed to, it's just me right now. So I was able to sacrifice things, and I was able to budget and to plan, and I quit my job and up and moved because I needed that self-care. And I was telling people at first, I'm just not going to work for 3 months. Now I'm telling people that, I want everybody to hear this. I'm telling people this, but in my head, I'm like, I'm not going back to work until 2021. But like, I'm telling people this, and I'm like, and that was part of that. I wanted to please everybody else. I'm gonna just tell them 3 to 6 months. But in my head, I'm like, girl, you ain't finna do none of that. January 2021, we might start looking into other stuff. Like, no. So October, listen, October, I slept. November, I traveled. December, I went back home to St. Louis. January was actually the court case for my mom and brother. So that month, the only thing I did was, and then that ended up being emotional because the court case ended up landing on my father's birthday. So that month, I ain't do nothing. February, I traveled. March, I was like, I'm ready to go. And Corona was like, nope, we here. I was like, okay, like,
go sit down.
I'm gonna take my butt back inside, and we gonna sit inside, and that's what we're doing. And so, I was back to sleeping when I want to sleep, having my own schedule, having to do this, and I was actually able to invest in some goals that I had wanted to. So I took a couple grant writing classes, which I've been wanting to do probably for the last 4 years. Was able to do that, pass those. I started studying for my licensed Master of Social Work test, and I was able to take the test, and we could talk about that on a different, we'll have a follow-up video. We'll talk about that process. But, I didn't get the result I wanted, but I was so proud of myself because for 4 months, I dedicated my time every day to study for that. I was pushing for that goal, which was something that I never thought I could do. But for whatever reason, I had the motivation, I had the fire, and that's what I did. And I sat and took the test. I got back into writing. I love writing, but I've always been so insecure about my writing. And now I got a blog and a YouTube channel. Like, what? Like, but there was insecurities in that. And during this time, I've been able to address that because part of my issue has always been me trying to please everybody else and never trying to please myself. And I get advice from people all the time, because I'm gonna just say this to a lot of people, especially those of us who are on this self-love journey. People gonna give you answers to questions you never even asked. I want to say that again. People are going to give you answers to questions you never even asked. And I say that because that has been some of my biggest problems in life, when people try to give me answers and I'm trying to figure out who asked the question, because I know it wasn't me. And so during this time, during this self-love journey, investing in that and really just having to be rooted in myself and having to set that bound, like you were talking about boundaries earlier, having to set that boundary of, I know you're coming from a good place, but I don't need that right now. I don't need to hear that, you know.
Oh, okay, tag me in. Tag me in.
Tag you in.
You said a lot about you said a lot of things that I think is key. One, where in life have people really taken out the time to plan like a sabbatical, like sabbaticals, or we use vacation time, like, and that could be 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5, 7 days a year, and we call that time to restore ourselves. So we don't necessarily plan time to take care of our own personal needs and make that a priority. And I get it. Sometimes it's hard to do that when you have multiple things that kind of work against you. And, you know, if you were like me, I made mistakes in life. I'm calling mistakes, but I need to stop shaming myself. But like, if you get into like credit card debt, you know, that's a setback. You know what I'm saying? I think I've shared my story with that before. You know, getting into over $30,000 of consumer debt and paying back every penny plus interest. It took me 3 years for that, you know? And so realizing that sometimes we get ourselves in situations that takes time to get out of. It didn't take much to get in, but it does take time to come out. And making sure that that's okay, that we plan our next moves and our goals around the things that are already listed as priority, you know, because even for you mentioned that, you know, now you're at a place where you are everything for Lisa. Like you are everything. Because your mother and father's physical body is not here, but you still have bills. You still have to live, and you still have other responsibilities, like with caring for your brother, and caring for yourself. And then learning too, you moved from St. Louis to New York, you know, in the midst of all of this. It's always learning a new city, learning a new structure, deciding that you're still going to pick up your goals again, you know, in some way. Sometimes it seems like the small things that we like, oh, why is this happening? Those things turn out to reveal more to us. Like it breathes back into us and reminds us of the things that we promised ourselves, the investments that we wanted to make, and it allows us to get back on track. And so, or even just the time to do it. I think that's so important. And you know, knowing all of this that you just said, the last part that you talked about when it comes to self-love and people giving you answers to things that you didn't really ask for, I think, you know, that's why I talk so much about this journey. It's so personal. Like it's so personal, to so much to the point where you make sure that you are caring for yourself. You make sure that you are sleeping, making sure that you are eating, like those basic small things that we tend to think don't matter, like making sure you're drinking water, making sure that you call the company and let them know that, hey, this X, Y, and Z happened, instead of just leaving people in the red. And I think one of the harder things for me was when I realized that relationships and things beginning to shift because of my grief. Like I had to have hard conversations with relatives and was just like, hey, I have to set a boundary with you, and reminding them that you can't talk at me. You can't talk to me like this is adult Christian, not child Christian. So that means that, you know, here's what I'm dealing with, and respect my voice. Respect what I said is the issue. Don't spin my words. Don't twist them. This is where I said I'm at. If I said I'm mad as hell right now, I'm mad as hell. Like, let me be in that mad. And don't try to tell me or shame me for being mad. And I think you heard me talk about this a lot. Like being angry is not a bad. Like people shame being angry a lot, but I mean, your anger is secondary to whatever of the root nature of the issue is. And so mine was rooted in grief. And like I told you, and like I talked about in the beginning, like the worst of me came out in that moment. And so just like you and I, when we sat at that table and we having our teas and coffees, like that was that moment for us to breathe and say, sis, let me check your post. like, let me make sure you okay right now, because I can't even show face. Like, I can't even show up. And it was even
Right.
hard because I am a business owner. And so, like, it was even harder for me because it felt like I was letting people down because I had to step away for a moment. And so I was
Right.
forcing myself to still show up, but I didn't have the breath. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the courage. I didn't have the confidence. I was crushed, and then I was being introduced to a new version of me. Like, I didn't know who this person was. I was having to learn to live without in something that didn't come with the manual, or no roadmap. Like, it was literally crushing for me. And I think I had to say, sometimes people don't have to say nothing to us, but we are the hardest on ourselves. And yeah,
Right.
you this, like,
Right.
because I could talk myself into a corner. Like, I don't need nobody to say nothing to me. But I think it was extremely hard because as I was going through things, some relationships were being damaged, and these were close ones. And so, going through this grief, damaging things, not really having a roadmap, not really knowing what this looks like or feels like, being a business owner, like, oh my gosh, what does this mean about life and business and revenue? Like, what does this all mean? And then having a career pivot in the middle of that, deciding to go back and do more. And then on top of that, let's pivot again, because now I'm preparing to even be a wife. Like, so that takes on the body of a whole nother person. And it's
Right.
so much that takes place that we have to make sure that we are allowing ourselves the time to plan, to take time to prioritize ourselves so that our personal needs are met, and without regard to what anybody else thinks. Like,
Right. Right.
I don't know, just
Right.
I
That,
mean,
I mean, you touched on everything. I mean, honestly, I have my notes here, and you said it all. You said it all. One of the things that was hard for me was, one, I was a college counselor at the time, so I was working with a bunch of kids, growing adults. Because, to be honest, the life they was living, they was adults. They weren't kids. They lost their youth a long time ago.
yeah,
Assisting them and also dealing with their grief, because whereas my contract had only said I just helped them get into college and that's it,
yeah,
because I am a human, I know there's more to that.
yeah,
There's more to that in life. And so, dealing with a bunch of stuff that they were going through, I had a student get shot in the chest, and I mean, that was probably one of the points where I'm like, I don't think I can do this no more.
yeah.
Because on top of my grieving, one of my students got shot.
Mm,
I was probably 4 or 5 homeless students. On top of, I had a couple students who their parents had told me they were in rehab. It was so much going on, and like you just said, I wasn't filled. My cup was empty. And so I'm showing up the Miss Nolan that everybody's used to me, but Miss Nolan hurt too. Miss Nolan is running on E, honey, and we at the E where the car about to shut down, and we like running on. And I had, part of that was, one of my students came up to me one day and said, Miss Nolan, you just don't smile as much as you used to.
mm,
And she looked at me and she said, can I just hug you? Like, I just feel like you need a hug. And if you know me, I don't like being touched. Like, don't touch me. Don't put your hand on my shoulder. Don't, like, don't. We'll do the little and call it a day. But when I say that student just put her arm around my shoulder and just said, it's okay, Miss Nolan. We know that you're here for us. We know. But I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. And then I met one of my parents, who he was a single father raising a young woman. And he said, Miss Nolan, you've been the only person to invest in me and my daughter. And I
mm.
just want you to know that we're willing to invest in you because I know you're having a difficult time. Even in your grief, you're still making sure my daughter is able to graduate. You're still making sure my daughter is able to get back into her school. You're still making sure that my daughter has everything she needs, because I'm a single father, and the only other person I have is my father. So poor baby girl got granddaddy and daddy raising her, and we just don't know what we're doing. Like, and at that moment, I realized people gonna know that you for them. People gonna know in your good and your bad, they gonna know. Before this live came on, you said something that just stuck out to me. Whoever needs to hear this is gonna hear this. Whoever needs to reach is gonna reach. And to piggyback off of that, when you are servicing other people, your clients, the people in your life, the people you come into contact with, they gonna know you for them. It speaks. It speaks. It speaks loud and clear. And that was something that I had to remind myself because I was so hard on myself, like, you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
But who's saying that? I was saying that. The people I was working with, they was telling me, no. You're doing just fine. You're bringing the table. Not only you bringing the table, you're the chairs, you're the stuff that go on the table. Like, you the cute little tablecloth. Like, listen, you got
Okay, you the whole setup, sis. Like what?
it. Like, listen, and your work ethic speaks. It's in it and it speaks. And I just want to say that to anybody that's struggling right now too, is breathe. Breath. Take a breath.
Give where you can. And I say that in all capacities, because it is an unspoken expectation that rests up on us, that we have to give what other people think that we have, even if we don't have it.
Ooh.
And that is a invisible expectation that is there.
Right.
And I want to share this. I don't know why, but sometimes as I was going through my grieving process, I was like, oh, I should be further along. I should be in a different place now. Like, things should be better. But I understand, because it's all attached to pace.
Yeah.
If anybody that watches, I always give my 3 C's.
Yeah.
At least you probably know what the 3 C's are. Connection with yourself authentically, which also connects with what you just said. Like, you have to be able to give genuinely.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you have to be authentic with yourself. And then commitment to your own self-care, balancing your own life and taking care of your own business. It's not just a fad. It's not just a trend. It's not self-care. It's not a trend. It's not something you say. It's something that you live, you do. It's a lifestyle. And then consistency is something that you do at a pace that works for you.
Right.
Not the hustle, not the bustle, but something that you could keep up with, that you have the strength, that you have the courage and the bandwidth in order to do. And I think that's important, that we make sure that we emphasize the personal need that has to be met in order for us to accomplish and be what we need to be in life. And without feeling as if we have to meet that invisible expectations for other people. And I think that attaches to like confidence a lot, because the more that you dive deeper into yourself and connect with yourself, the more confident that you become in knowing that whatever is going to be for you is going to be for you, and whatever you're supposed to do, you're going to do it, and nothing can stop that. And so you'll begin to take those limits off of yourself, feeling like you got to meet everything and be at everything, and be a part of everything. Like, when I took my hiatus of like social media separation, when I came back, people were still there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't miss and sometimes we are afraid to do that.
Yeah.
But when you are dealing with heavy things, formal or informal grief, you have to make sure that you are taking these breaks, and don't make it be like, oh, I took 3 days. Because the truth is, these companies that you work for, these grief policies are trash. Like, you giving me 3 days to grieve somebody that I've known 20 something years of my life, like, that's unrealistic. And then it ties down into you having to take sick days and vacation days to compensate for the time that you need. Like, where is that investment in human life that allows us to say, I'm human. I might need 2 to 4 weeks, but can I still come back and have a job after I grieve because I still got bills? Or will I have to go someplace else to try to figure it out? Where is the emphasis on dignity and worth? Like, of a person trying to survive what they are experiencing. And I think that's what I love about our profession so much, is
Right.
because it places emphasis on making sure that we don't forget the human in being a human being.
Right. Right.
And so, girl, I'm gonna pause because we still have so much.
Yeah. But I think what you're talking about segues really good into the grieving as a society question, because I
Okay.
think at this point what you just said, we can add that on to how we're feeling as a society. And like,
Yeah.
the reason why I say that is because I've met mostly social workers who they're like, I still have my regular job, but I know I need to be out there protesting. I know I need to be out there passing water. I know I need to be a social worker on site in case anything happens. And so I've talked to a lot of our social worker colleagues who are like, I'm in this place of what can I do? Because on top of, I have a commitment to the broader society. I have a commitment to my clients. I also have a commitment to myself, but I also need to rest, so it's this fight of rest versus fighting. And so one of the things that I always tell is take a day to yourself and show up when you can.
Yeah.
Show up when you can. Then I've met the other extreme where some of my social workers are like, no, protesting is my self-care. That's what I'm doing. If I'm not out there, I'm going crazy. Again, it's a personal journey. If you can protest and still take care of yourself, hey, I'm all for it. Me, I have to dedicate a day to just me, which I did tell you. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the self-care retreat that I attended. So out here in New York, I believe we're on day 18 or 19 of consecutive protesting days. And so Sunday, we have phenomenal women leadership. Community leadership out here. And so I went to a self-care retreat on Sunday in Harlem, and it was for Black and Latinx women. So we went to Harlem. We found a piece of grass. I don't even remember the name of the park. Yeah, I'm still new to New York, so I'm still learning. I know we was in Harlem though, and we journaled. We did Kundalini yoga. We did a couple poses from that, and then we talked about colorism when we talked about the effects colorism has had on us. We've also discussed breaking those generational traumas. And one of the things that stuck out was one of the ladies is two identical twin sisters. They call themselves Brujas of Brooklyn. They're always live on Instagram. But one of the things she said was the revolution is here. One of the most revolutionary things we can do that our ancestors didn't do is rest.
Yeah.
Sometimes your action to addressing the revolution is to rest and to take time. And what I realized was all the Black and Latinx women that were there, we were protesters, we were mothers, we were activists, we were politicians, but most of all, we were women of color that had been affected by the injustices of our life, of our society. So when she said that, and she said, the lady, she said, I'm a Black woman who I have my PhD and I used to protest and I do that. She's naming this list of things. And she said, but what I had to learn was I had to take a break from being the fighter because I had become angry. I had become angry at what I was doing. Which it reminded me a lot. Like I'm not a Black woman. I'm a white Puerto Rican. So I will never know what it's like to be Black in the United States of America. And I always put that first. I am a white Puerto Rican. So I will never know what that is like. But when Mike Brown was murdered in 2014, that I decided and I was going to dedicate my life to community work. I was going to dedicate my life to fighting injustices. I was going to use my white, pale skin to fight off some of these things because at a young age I had learned what white privilege was. And it had nothing to do with finances. It had nothing to do with me having a good life, but it had everything to do with I will not get targeted or judged the way my Black brothers and sisters have. I've grown up around Black and brown people my whole life. I went to an all Black school. So at a young age, I was seeing this stuff. I didn't know back then it was called injustices. I didn't know back then it was called white privileges. If you would have told me that 15 years later I was doing this type of work, I would have been like, no, That's not what we doing. But my life has segued in to when Mike Brown was killed. I dedicated my life to this. And so I've been doing this type of work since 2014. But when she said that she had got angry, I felt that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when George Floyd was murdered and we watched as a nation that man scream out for his mother, I asked myself, how many times do we have to see this before a point is proven? Because before George Floyd, I remember there was a list of people that we were still fighting
Yeah.
justice. So when she said that, and she said the most revolutionary thing you can do is rest. Well, Christian, if I could just be honest, I'm not really good at resting. I mean, now I am, that I took this mental health break. But if we look at my life and I look at my parents' life and I look at the older people in my life, we ain't never really rested. And so that goes back to that generational curse, those generational traumas that are passed down.
Mm-hmm.
We've never been good at resting. We've never been good at addressing who we are. Because if I speak up, I'm too aggressive. If I'm too quiet, I'm not doing enough. So where's the balance? And you go from generation to generation and you see these patterns that continue to happen. So now we have 2020 Lisa Nolan, who has invested in myself, who is very serious about my self-care, who is very serious about the type of work that I do, who is very serious in love and ripping those layers that I've learned for so long. Because one thing that keeps coming up, you're not going to break somebody who has been living in their truth for 30 years. You're not going to change that in 2 days. Well, I'm 28. So is 1 year going to turn me into this kumbaya, peaceful person? Absolutely not. Because there's still anger that I have to address. There's still traumas that I have to address. I'm going to stop right there because I know I said a lot.
So you really said a lot, and I think I want to unpack it just a little bit and hit on a couple of things that really stood out to me. Because I think the one, I'm going to thank you for taking up such community work, because you really said it when you say you dedicate your life to this, because I understand that this is a lifelong journey of changing things that have been established for years. And so we're going to need you in order to help move things forward and be out there on the forefronts, but also using your voice in the way that you can. Because although you are white and Puerto Rican, like, people don't recognize the Puerto Rican part of you. They recognize the color of your skin. And so realizing that they recognize the color of your skin, that's where your privilege comes in, and that's where it's learned. And then for being a Black woman, pressure is learned from me. Because now I have to be twice as good. I have to be better. I have to show up. I have to be professional. I can't say this. I can't say that. And so it brews this pressure inside of me that allows me to have to, it really breeds my anger. It makes me frustrated because now I can't really show up how I want to show up, because me having food on the table is going to be compromised, or me having to speak up at this point means that something's going to get left out and the name of my family could be possibly ruined. And so there's a lot of pressure on the side of just being Black that comes with, it just comes with the territory of the color of my skin. And realizing that, social change is something that I picked up as the part of social work that drives me. But social change means policy change. And I realized that what we're really after is after we protest for our days, and after we finish using our voice and using this time to build momentum, that we are going to have to be strategic about really looking at the people that have the power and the authority, and what bills exist, what statutes at a state, local, and federal level work against us. And as I began to get into this new thing of like policy work, some things that I'm realizing is that the people that have power line item veto the things that will actually help change things and move things forward.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's going to cause us to have to be more knowledgeable about our government, how process and procedures work, how bills are voted in, how we, even the organizations that we engage in, like what's the backstory and the history of their creation and what are they founded on. It even means that our ideas and businesses that we develop right now are going to have to be more grounded in social issues, but they also are going to have to partner with other organizations in different capacities in order to move forward. And so, I mean, really hearing what you said about witnessing things in this moment, if we could kind of pull back to grief just really quick,
Yeah.
like witnessing George Floyd's death live like that really shook me, because here I am, I'm listening to a man say he can't breathe, and in my chest, I'm starting not to be able to breathe, because I'm like, oh my God, like somebody stop him. Like that's me yelling at the TV, like get off him, like move him, kick him in the face, like move, like that's me wanting to see something happen to save that man's life. And I think that the more that we begin to video, and the fact that we even have to have this much evidence and we have to constantly build these cases to show that the injustice is there, whether it's in institutions, whether it's in the systems, like wherever it exists, the fact that we have to work this hard in order to show that these things are happening in order to get attention, to me just shows that we have just been living in a passive society where we'll just throw them a couple of dollars, we'll just give them, we'll make their name this, we'll put out a statement and say, okay, this is what it is. But once they take those statements down, you know what I'm saying, once you take those statements down and realize that we are the consumers of a lot of these major businesses that are putting up those statements right now, once we realize where we sit with these companies, that will help us to really gain momentum in driving the economy to create policy change, because a lot of these organizations are driven by federal policies that are causing us to feel the injustice. And so like I said, I'm really getting heavy into the policy side of things, and realizing that if we really want change and we want to see something happen, then that means policies have to change, because right now they are working against us.
Right. I do want to speak on a policy change. So when I was in grad school, the Stockley case in Missouri, in St. Louis, was happening, and I had ended up going to one of my professors, my research professor, and telling him that there were a bunch of town hall as well as protests happening. And I remember telling him, like, as social workers, we should not be in class, especially with this program. Particularly, most of the social workers are white. We need to be outside. And I remember him saying an offer of like, okay, if you don't want to come to class, you have to go to the town hall meeting. So so me and one other student goes to town hall meeting. Everybody else, I think one person went to class. Everybody else said that they had went to town hall meeting. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I snitched. I was like, they wasn't there. They wasn't there. Because this is more than just being able to skip class. We're social workers. We're in research right now. All of us have a community program that we're working on right now. There is a community outcry of policy happening right now. Why are you not showing up? And I was angry. So the professor had talked and was like, this is a policy thing. We really need to go up higher in the university and talk to the higher ups. I went to go talk, but as you know, Christian, I'm very aggressive when I talk. Like, I get passionate and I become very aggressive. So they didn't take well to me. So the professor was like, you know what, Lisa, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with you. I'm going to let you go and do what you need to do for the community, and I'm going to speak on your behalf.
Yeah.
Because I know how to talk to them. This is a white professor. And he said, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And he was like, what you said wasn't wrong, but those people up there will not hear you because they're not used to someone speaking with such passion.
Yeah.
They're not used to the hands. And, I roll my eyes. My voice changes. The hoop earrings get to going crazy. The curls get to pop. Like, it's a whole scene when I talk. And so my professor was like, I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to go up there and I'm going to talk to them. And I'm going to literally say everything you said. I'm just going to say it in a tone that they could hear me.
Yeah.
And through that, we ended up getting like one policy changed on the university level to protect the students who were, one, Black, and two, who were out there protesting and doing the community work. And none of that would not have happened if I wouldn't have had that professor say, this is also a policy issue. This isn't just the community or students need to be out there. This is something we need to change in our policy
Yeah.
in order for us to really see something happen. So I do want to just say policy is something we also need to look at too. I fall in the category of I can be on the ground working, but I also go to town hall meetings and community stuff to learn more about policy. I am at the stage where I work with people to help me understand policy to see what needs to be changed. I'm not necessarily the policy changer, but I'm in support of them.
But you are though. But you are though. Because I think we don't want to miss the part about policy change has to do with developing interest groups and developing advocacy groups, because you have to start first with the conversation around it, because you can't change policy if you don't have a problem to change. So there is no policy change without a problem. So I think honestly you are in a place to do that. And I think it's good that you are investing time to become knowledgeable and you're allowing yourself to be a student in that capacity. And I think that, if we could tie it into, how does policy relate to grief? As I stated earlier, we talked about how a lot of these organizations or institutions, like you just mentioned, even as a student, you don't have that time to take time, to actually make time to refill up on a lot of your personal needs or to regain the support in the capacities that you need them. And I think that's very important as we move forward and you want to talk about grief beyond death. Like, you got to be a strong advocate for the trauma or the experiences that you have had and faced. You have to advocate and be a voice in these companies and let them know, hey, this one policy right here that you have that says we can only go for 3 days works against me. And even in the education sector, when you get to talking about how education impacts your ability to grieve effectively, right? You got to think about how the education says, if I don't show up in class this many days, but that person not realizing that you're basing it off of my appearance, but the things that are really impacted are the things you can't see. You can't see depression, you can't see suicide, you can't see my trauma. You can't imagine because you will never know, because you haven't lived my life. You haven't lived this experience of me. And I think that that's important as we begin to move forward. And we are asking for change to actually be made. And we are looking for things beyond the grief as a society that we are facing, is that we are making sure that we are calling those things that are brewing inside of us to the forefront and to the attention of those people. Because it's one of the things I'm hearing a lot of companies and people say right now is they don't know what to say. And to me, I think that that's disappointing to hear, for one, because when it comes to when COVID first hit us, when the pandemic first hit us, you had everything to say, and you was empathizing and you was sympathizing in that moment, and you was all of compassion. But now there's a delay in acknowledging my human experience because you don't have the words to say. Like, that to me is that I feel like that's an embarrassment.
That brings me to
because right now, especially for us in the social work field, I also have to be mindful that with us being a profession that focuses on, like, that has a person in the environment approach and, looks at things holistically and more well-rounded, you have the insight to be able to say, hey, how come you can teach me how to be present for a student, but you don't have any support from me as a professional to be able to take the time that I need? It's not one direction in serving, it's both ways.
Right.
Then, so I mean, we could dig into layers and layers. I want to make sure we get through the meat of your conversation, but I just understand that grief and policy also have a place.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Um, We talked a lot about that. I just want to touch, because you have experience with this, the importance of having life insurance. Because I think a lot of times we talk about grief and we talk about death, but a lot of times, like, life insurance is such a taboo. And I know you work with life insurance, so I honestly just want you to kind of talk about it. I mean, I have life insurance, so I could talk about it from a consumer perspective. But you've actually sold it. You've actually, you've lived that life. So kind of
Yeah.
talk about, why is it such a taboo? What is it? What's some advice you would want to give? Just whatever information you feel we need to know about.
Absolutely. So, one, I've been a licensed producer, which is a life insurance agent since 2017. So that's when I originally got my license. And the reason that I entered into the life insurance field was because I'm like, why don't we talk about like all these fundraisers and people hitting me up about, hey, so and so passed away, can you buy a chicken dinner, or um donate $10 to the death of someone. And I was just wondering, like, wait a minute, is there a way that we can help educate people that before they pass away, like, let's put something in place so you can make sure that your family is well. Because one thing that I know, after death, the bills don't stop. After death, sometimes the debt that loved one had, whoever the next of kin is, that company is coming for you.
Right.
They want you to pay the debt of someone that passed away. So sometimes that debt don't die when they do.
Right.
Especially if it's associated with a mortgage, especially if it's associated with a mother or a father who was staying at home and the primary caretaker of someone, or you had a child with a disability. you know um it's so many different it's so many different scenarios that exist that people are just not prepared for. And so that was one of my reasons for getting my license, because I'm like, if I get this license, I could educate people on how to educate themselves in moving forward, and preparing for this. And so some of the taboos around that is like, I've heard people say, well, I have insurance with my job, so I'm okay. And my one of my questions is, okay, so when a lot of these companies just let a lot of people go, where did your life insurance go? you know who pays for that now? Um and another thing is that I've heard people say, if I get life insurance right now, that's like putting the cart before the horse, because they wanted to invest money maybe in their business or invest money in another place that seemed to be more of a priority for them in that moment. But I'm like, there's two things for sure in this life. You are born, if you are here and you're a human being, and you will die. Those are the two most certain things in life that happen. And I'm like, that is one unnoticed area, that exists. And then I have to say this. Then my fiance, my soon to be husband, is a licensed funeral director. So for me, it just made sense, realizing that the value of having life insurance is far greater than it is without having it. And so some of the things that I want to kind of walk you all through is understanding that as you I want to start here. When is the right time to get life insurance? I'm going to say today. I'm going to say right away. And it doesn't have to be that expensive. You can get whatever you can afford to get right now. And I think that it's important that we talk about a lot of things being primary bills. That right there is a bill that I strongly recommend that you have, because one thing for certain is you are going to pass away. And realizing that you have to also understand that getting life insurance separate and aside from your current business is always a good thing. That's one of the things that I do. I have it separate from my company. I have my own, and I also have one with the company, because sometimes your company will get kickback off of you, like you are a liability and also an asset to the company you work for. And so understanding that it works in their favor and not yours is one of those things to be mindful of. And as you are developing purchasing life insurance, or deciding to either get it or don't, understand that as you decide how much to get, that you need to consider whatever your existing debt is, consider any final expenses that you have, consider Consider your dependency expenses, and the people that may be a stay at home. Because what we fail to realize sometimes is that the investments we make in life are not just attached to just us in this one moment, right? It's our families are involved in this. Your significant other is involved in this. Your children are involved in this, and so getting it really just shows that you care about your family, and that you want to make sure that they are taken care of beyond your death.
Right.
And life insurance is also not a standalone thing. That's why I'm saying it's not a selfless act, which means that you have to actually have a conversation and involve the people that are a part of your policy into the conversation. I know we love surprises, and I know people love saying, oh, my grandma, they just left me a check. That stuff is good, but it's also good to be knowledgeable ahead of time, to know that it exists, to know it can also help you make financial decisions in life, as that you can fall back on that as a safety net. And there's several different insurances, which I ain't going to go into today, that can actually work for you, that has a living benefit and a death benefit to it. And so that could be universal life insurance. And so you also have term, and okay, I said I wouldn't go into it, but you have those different ones that exist. But here's the thing too that comes with life insurance. There are other responsibilities that you have to have. When the death of a loved one happens, when you have to go in and you got to make those arrangements. And you mentioned earlier you made two. You had planned two funerals, and sometimes in that moment you can't even think straight. So you're like, okay, so what did my loved one really want? What did they want it to look like? What will make this special for them? So why do we have to have that conversation within our minds after the loved one passed away? Why not create a will? Why not create our obituaries? Why not write these things out? Why not normalize these conversations in our homes to make sure that we are actually talking about the future and preparing each other? So you talked about generational things and generational habits and behaviors. Well, let's make this normal. Let's make this a conversation to be had, because we're not all going to we're not all going to go when we think we're going to go. And so it's just better to be prepared. And then if you don't want life insurance, honestly, another idea is to do a pre-need. Do a pre-plan. Encourage your loved ones to do pre-planning burials so that they know exactly what it is that they want is already planned out. It takes the burden off of you all as a family. Sometimes it's paid for before the end of life, and so you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how you're going to pay for it, and where did that loved one leave their paperwork, and what's their social security number, and everything that you have to go through in order to close things off. And then this is why you have to know what your relatives or loved ones, you need to at least have a confidence in knowing what they are invested in and doing. Share those passwords with them, create a safe space to be able to have the conversation about, here's where you find this paperwork when you're done, so that you and your loved ones not scrapping through the house trying to find things. And these are the conversations that I feel should be normalized, because we live to live for fun, but the truth is we also have to live to die, and we have to know what that actually looks like for each of us. And so I'm hoping that I kind of shedded light on some of those. I know I said a lot, but I also say, if you don't have it, don't shame yourself for not having it right now. Don't shame yourself. There are many different levels that you could, budgets that can be set for different amounts of insurance, and so I would just encourage you, if you want to quote, if you want to know more about it, I can put you in contact with one of the agents, and you could definitely learn more information and prepare yourself. If you want help, reach out and DM me and let me know.
Yes. Thank you for that. I'm gonna just piggyback and then kind of summarize everything. One thing I will say, we do need to talk about life insurance. Both my parents had life insurance through their jobs, and 5 days before my mom passed, she actually opened up a third life insurance. I don't know if she knew, but 5 days, and thank God it was a company that they worked with us. They have, and I know we said we weren't gonna go into detail, but of course they had to do an investigation, because she opened it 5 days before and stuff like that. We begged my mom, my siblings, for years. I think I told you this, Christian, for years to open up and do a will and do that. It was such a scary topic, you know.
Yeah.
And with my father, we just had it with his job. Back when my father passed away, though, funerals were a lot cheaper. Let me tell you that much. And that was only 11 years ago. Funerals were a lot cheaper back then. Um, so with his mini life insurance, because that's what it was, we were able to just pay everything off and not go into debt, as far as I know. Because again, I was only 15 at that point. As far as I know, that's what we were able to do. With my mom, it was a different ball game because for so long she had finally invested in herself and had finally opened up these life insurance policies. So that encouraged me. I've been trying to get life insurance policies probably since I was 15, because obviously losing a father at a young age, you learn about these stuff and so. But one of the things that used to hold me back was I'm diabetic. I've been diabetic since I was 15. And so I wasn't able to get life insurance on my own until maybe a couple years ago. And that was policy change. People fighting for policy changes to happen. The pre-existing conditions that we have, you know, me being Puerto Rican, high blood pressure, diabetes, stuff. My father passed away from a heart attack. So when I'm calling these insurance companies, they're like, oh no, you're high risk. So these prices were out of line. So I say all that to say, you know, we, in that aspect, we've definitely fought for policy changes and even life insurance aspects, and even being able to get affordable life insurance, like you said, because I know my policies really aren't that expensive, but they do what they need to do. So, you know, thank you for that feedback. I'm just gonna kind of sum everything up because we talked about a lot. And then I'm gonna give you. I want you to tell people where they can find you, your web, you know, how they can reach out to you. But just to summarize everything, we talked about grief personally. We talked about grief as a society. We talked about policy changes, self-care, self-love, self-rest. The revolution is here. I'm gonna continue to say that, but like the lady taught me, we gotta do things differently from what our ancestors did, and part of that is resting. And then I'm gonna encourage everybody to look into life insurance policies, start planning it out. Don't be scared to write a will. Don't be scared to contact somebody and just learn more about it. It is not taboo. It's something we all need. We all know we have an expiration date. We don't know when that expiration date is, but we know it's coming. So just be comfortable. Just be comfortable. I always say, and that's our quote here at Healing She Got Faith, is love you the way you love the world. So everything we discussed has to do with that. So I encourage you guys. You guys know I love you so much. Please, please, please continue to love yourself the way you love the world. And then I want Christian, I want you to, you know, just tell them where you can find them. And then I'm going to read your quote, and then we'll have a good rest of Saturday.
For sure. So it's a couple things I want to make sure that you all have about how to get in touch with me. So the first one is, if you all are interested in learning more about My Secret's Purpose, or the conference that really focus on helping people discover their purpose and empowering them to succeed, then you definitely want to go to mysecretswiththepurpose.com and sign up on our newsletter so that you can be alert and informed for when conference details are going out. And you also, the next thing I want to say, if you are in Missouri, so I'm licensed in Missouri, but I also have a connection with other agents that are licensed throughout the state. In many different states. And so you want to make sure that if you are just interested in having a conversation and seeing what you could be eligible or qualify for, definitely DM me. So you have my profile, so you could drop it to just Christian Shields on Facebook, and you can look for my face and let me know that you're interested in getting a quote or getting information, and I'll connect you with someone so that you're able to get what you need. And then the last thing, if you are in Missouri and maybe you don't want to go the life insurance route, maybe you want to plan your stuff out and you want to ease the burden off of your families and make sure that your family is really able to just celebrate your life, I can connect you with a pre-need specialist that is going to be able to kind of help you, walk you through what that looks like and prepare you for it. So those are the main things that I want. And again, Lisa already put it up there. That's a way that you can connect with me. Don't be a stranger.
Yes, I wanted to. That's her name. So take it down, screenshot it. My Secret's Purpose. She is phenomenal. If you send her an email, she gets back to you right away. So please, please, please.
Maybe not right away.
Well, within
system in place.
72 hours. So, yeah. So you won't be waiting 2 weeks before you hear from her. Let me just say that. I would say this: before I knew Christian as my sister, I actually did your 15-minute consultation. Mm-hmm. And I really feel like that's where we really got to know each other. I went to her conference first, and then I wanted to invest in myself, and I did her 15-minute consultation. And we talked. She gave me an assignment, and I was grieving, and that's when I called her and was like, Christian, I am just not able to do this assignment. Like, I'm tired, and it's a lot going on. And from there, we continued our conversation. And she ended up reaching out to me about grad school. And so we built this friendship, this sisterhood, because I invested myself and went to her conference and decided to do that 15-minute consultation. So I encourage everybody to do it. So please, please, please reach out to her. She will definitely get back to you. I'm a quote person, so all of my guests, I always ask to send me your favorite quote. And I always just like to end on that. Before I say the quote, I just want to say thank you. I love you. You're doing a phenomenal job. Thanks for the vulnerability. Thanks for shedding the tears with us. You are welcome to Healing She Got Faith anytime. If you have an idea, you are more than welcome. We will definitely be working more and more together, especially as I grow in my business. So just, keep me on the radar. But I just text you, girl. So, so her quote is, I choose, I can, I enjoy, I create, I love, I rock. The answers are on their way. This is an excerpt from Jen Sinero's book, You Are a Badass Every Day.
Every day. Every single day.
Yes. So thank you so much. Today was great. I don't know how everybody else feels, but this was great.
Y'all right out there.
Breathe.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yes. I love you. I appreciate you. I honor you. Okay. Keep going. This is a evolving journey. Remember that.
Yes.
Remember that.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, everybody. Enjoy your Saturday. We love you. We will see you next Sunday. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.